tutorials by Andrew Buckle. In this tutorial I'm just going to show you Illustrator CC 2014 and saving SVG files, and in particular some sort of optimization of those files. Now I've got a vector here, and one of the easiest things I think for optimization, and maybe it's is the Smart Remove Brush tool. And you can find that from Astute Graphics. It's part of their Vector Scribe application. What it does, it removes unnecessary points on here. So if you're on the path, so you can just go over it and you can just remove. It's got various tolerances, so you can just remove additional points. Obviously that trims down fairly nicely without really degrading the image at all. Now that's one useful thing, but without actually getting obviously another plugin, if you're doing file and save as, and then you're going to SVG, and I've got a file there, test, I'm just going to save it, save as. One nice thing that comes up with this little dialogue, you've got a, now there's a code, you can actually see the code it generates. So if you actually got, now by default, for some weird reason, the include slicing data. Now I particularly don't want slicing data to be included, but of course if you do, but by default it's actually set on, certainly on my system anyway. So I've actually turned it off. If you actually, there, and I'm just going to bring that up, and you can actually see what happens. It generates some additional code at the top here. So and so you can actually trim down quite a bit. So that's fairly empty at the head. So I'm just going to now select it on and just quickly show you what it generates instead. It actually generates all this entity information as well as a bit more. So you've got all that chunk of code probably from there down to there. That's all just been added, just there I should say. So if you've been generating SVG files, you might find that all your SVG files have got all that sort of code in, unless you've actually got rid of that to default setting. Also, it introduces this other additional code here. Now it doesn't have much, it's probably about 1K of additional information adds. But it's obviously nice just to, if you can, you don't want that. Also, of course, there's an also include XMP again. If you select that, go in SVG, and it includes a whole heap of other stuff, which frankly don't want. So remove that, those two, to make certain that it doesn't generate a lot of extra code. I've actually go generally with decimal places 1. I've found that in most cases the image looks absolutely fine, so that really reduces down the size as well. And another thing, and I'm just going to go back to the code, if you want to really trim down a little bit more space, a lot of this stuff I'm not actually certain why it generates it anyway. It seems a random thing. It seems to be connected with layers and symbols. I've been trying to work out some observations why it generates it, but I've actually had some SVG files where you've actually got a whole sequence of these G things. And here's one, G, lovely, G and a G, completely useless. And as far as I can see, I have no idea why it generates a group that is basically empty. And it sometimes produces these G new symbol underscore, and sometimes it can produce a whole heap of them. I say 10, 15, 20 of these things randomly. I've looked on the web, tried to find out any evidence. Like I say, I've done loads of observations running through different tests. Sometimes it generates them, sometimes it doesn't. I think sometimes it seems to be you can just delete them, of course. You just go into the SVG file. If you want to just remove some of these unnecessary Gs, sometimes you get a real horrible structure G. So if you actually look in a file, if you've got, say, a large file, you might actually find a lot of it. It's just a load of these weird sort of grouping symbol information that makes no sense what it's there for anyway. So you can just get rid of that. And of course, you can actually get rid of that as well. If you don't particularly need the ID information, you can just, of course, edit the file. Like I say, you've got some more G and down there as well, empty, unnecessary, and unfortunately there's no option in the actual palette over here, panel, to actually set. They can actually remove them. So anyway, that's just a thing, so I'll just click OK. Right, I hope you found this quick run through of SVG. I'm certain that I'll probably do a video if I find out observations of why it's generating some of these unnecessary additional information. Hope you found this of interest.